Hello everybody, this is General Yanis, and today in Death Card Tactics I'm continuing the review of the new codex, and today I'm looking more into detail about the units and the unit abilities. So let's get started. So the 17th of January, continuing to dive into the revealed and previewed rules from our new codex. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of things and create an objective view of all the changes, understanding the new situation, and then slowly but inexorably advancing towards new tactics for the Death Guard. And by objective view, I mean that I think a lot of the previews are very enthusiastic and very optimistic for any change in the codex. I think it's important to of course be happy for the good changes, but also to agree that some of the things were nerfed, and what are those and what are those implications. So as the saying goes in Denmark, let's call a shovel for a shovel. So if it's a nerf, let's call it a nerf, and if it's a good thing, let's call it a good thing. So in this video I will have a first overview of the unit rules and abilities, the keywords, and then I will be looking more into detail in the Foetid Virion units, basically our elite characters, because those have been significantly changed from our previous codex. Then a brief look at our troops, the Terminators and the Possessed, and then the Daemon Engines. And by no means is this a full review of all the rules so far. It's the best that could be done in a short time frame. But let's take a look. So this table summarizes the Death Guard units and basically their keywords and the abilities summary. So here we have all our units, the HQ, the troops, elites, fast attack, heavy support, transport, and our fortifications. And we have the base points, and then we have, for example, one important keyword and aura that they have is the Lord of the Death Guard, which is actually limitation. So the Lord of the Death Guard means that we can only have one of these units per detachment. And we can see that as my review was yesterday, that our HQ, basically all of them except the Sorcerer and the Malignant Plaguecaster, all of them have the Lord of the Death Guard keyword, which is not a helpful thing. This means, for example, you can take Typhus in combination with a Demon Prince, or you can take a Lord of Contagion and a Chaos Lord. So in any case, to fill something with more than one HQ slot, you would need the Malignant Plaguecaster and the Sorcerer, or the Sorcerer, and then one basically from the others, which is quite not the best of things. And then we have the new keywords, which is the Foetid Virion, and basically those include our 5 different elite characters: the Putrefier, the Blightspawn, the Noxious Blightbringer, the Surgeon, and the Tallyman. So basically this new rule we had yesterday means that you can take 3 of those and only fill 1 elite slot. Then a good thing, looking at what all the data sheets I could get my hands on, and the leaks, basically all our units have the contagions of Nurgle, which enables them to spread this aura with a -1 toughness, except one unit, and that's the cultists. So everything else has the contagions, but not the cultists. So the cultists again get a kick in the somewhere. But otherwise everything, for example, the Chaos Rhino or some of these Chaos Predators or some other units, they all have the contagions, which is quite good. Then if we look at Disgusting Resilience, the big topic of a lot of discussions previously, the Disgusting Resilience now of course being -1 to the incoming damage to a minimum of 1 and not the 5+ feel no pain. So what we can see is that our characters, our HQ choices all have Disgusting Resilience. Our Plague Marines, of course, have Disgusting Resilience. Our elite choices have Disgusting Resilience, but not the Hellbrute. But the Hellbrute has instead an ability called Monstrous Resilience, which is basically the same thing, -1. So if it also had Disgusting Resilience, it would be nice to have a -2, but it doesn't. So this is one of the only elite that doesn't have Disgusting Resilience, but it has an ability doing the same thing. And then if we look at the fast attack, our Demon, our Foetid Bloodthrone, the Blightholder, they have Disgusting Resilience. The Chaos Spawn does not have Disgusting Resilience. The Plagueburst Crawler has Disgusting Resilience. and then none of the other heavy support have disgusting resilience. For example, the Defiler, I could assume it could get it, but it didn't, and the Land Raider and the Predators don't have it. Also, the Chaos Rhino doesn't have it, but our Miasmic Malignifier will have it. Then it was introduced this new keyword, the Bubonic Astartes. So it doesn't seem very problematic at the beginning, but remember, as we talked yesterday, the inexorable advance detachment ability that we have is only for Bubonic Astartes units. So basically all our characters, HQ and Mortara, of course, are Bubonic Astartes. The Plague Marines are, but not our Poxwalkers and Cultists. All our elites are Bubonic Astartes, but importantly, our Demon Engines are not Bubonic Astartes. This means that our Demon Engines don't benefit from inexorable advance that was allowing us to use vehicles to be able to shoot without penalty in engagement range. So basically the inexorable advance this vehicle be able to shoot helps the Hellbrute, the Chaos Land Raider, and the Predator, and the Chaos Rhino, but it doesn't have a heavy weapon, I believe. So basically this is quite interesting, and some of the abilities or stratagem can only target Bubonic Astartes, and it's a bit a pity that our Demon Engines didn't get Bubonic Astartes. So keep that in mind if you're reading of some aura targeting only Bubonic Astartes. It doesn't help the Demon Engines. And then, as I talked also yesterday, the core units in our army are only Plague Marines, the Hellbrute, the Death Shroud and Blightlord Terminators, and the Possessed. So we only have 5 units with the core keyword, and a lot of the significant abilities, for example, Arch Contaminator, only target core units, and a lot of the elite characters, they have some auras helping units, but many times it's only core. So remember, if it's core, you have only a small selection of the units it's applicable upon. And then in this column, I will not go through in detail, but it's do they have plague weapons for ranged combat, and do they have plague weapons for melee combat? A lot of the times you have abilities that say that if you do a melee with, for example, Bubonic Astartes with a melee weapon on a 6+, they do something, but you have to make sure that they actually have a plague weapon if they can benefit. So this is basically to keep in mind and to have as a reference when we're discussing different abilities, that not all units, of course, are all the important keywords to benefit from abilities. Additionally, some remarks: the Poxwalkers cannot do, they can only do a death card specific action, even if they are infantry. The Cultists do not get the objective secure, so the objective secure is only for Poxwalkers and the Plague Marines. And the Hellbrute doesn't have any plague weapons, but it has a new rule that below 7 wounds you can reroll a 1-2 wound roll. So this is basically becoming like a plague weapon for the Hellbrute if it's damaged. And then for the Land Raider and the Rhino, it's interesting also to note that it can only transport Bubonic infantry, so it cannot, for example, transport Poxwalkers and Cultists that are not Bubonic infantry. So let's go through the Foetid Virions. So starting looking at our elite characters, let's start with the Noxious Blightbringer, the man with the bell. So now his new auras are that core and Foetid Virion units within 6 inches get +1 to their movement in moving and advancing. So no longer do we have the 2d6 and choosing the highest for advance roll, but it's good that he can benefit just a normal movement of our, for example, Plague Marines moving 6 inches if they are close to the Noxious Blightbringer. The Noxious Blightbringer can help himself and the other elite characters, but he cannot help the movement, for example, for our Demon Engines or anything else, or the HQ. So basically he can only help the core and other elite characters and not the HQ. He has the aura that enemy units within 6 inches get -1 to combat attrition test, and an aura that enemy psychers within 6 inches get -1 to psychic tests. And before he had a very helpful, at least in my opinion, a very helpful relic, the Demon's Toll from Psychic Awakening, that was now it's completely changed. Before we could get a 5+ aura of invul saves, which could be really good to make even more resilient, for example, Plague Marines. But now instead this new relic, which I don't think will be used a lot, is that once per battle you can select an enemy unit within 6 inches of the Noxious Blightbringer, once per battle, that cannot fall back if you roll a 2+. So maybe situationally could be interesting, but I guess you would not take an extra relic just for this role. So I think the Demon's Toll has been, very much changed. Now going over to one of the superstars of our 8th and 9th edition, the Foul Blightspawn. He has decreased in point cost now, but his weapon has also been nerfed to a damage 2 from a straight damage 3. Damage 2 can still be okay, but damage 3 meant he was killing elite units and like Custodes, and he could also kill Eradicators and things like that with one hit. But now he cannot do that, so it's damage 2, and the strength is now fixed to 7. Before it was a variable 2d6. So basically his strength will give the average of 7, which can be quite okay. He has a 12-inch range on the Plague Sprayer, but it's not it's a good weapon still, but it's not the lethality of the weapon that he had before. The relic Vomitrix that is still there from Mortarion Son's Plague Company, and this gives 7 attacks instead of a variable d6 attacks. And this before I wasn't so tempted to take this because it had the damage 2 weapon instead of the damage 3, but now as you're getting the damage 2, maybe it's better to get the consistency of the 7 attacks, but then you have to select the Mortarion Sons. One interesting thing is that the pathogen Viscous Death that also Warhammer Community previewed, you can give the pathogens to give +1 strength to a plague weapon. So in this case, a character will get +1 strength to the plague weapon, so this one would may become a strength 8, so this would be really good. And you can also reroll the d6 number of attacks if you take this specific pathogen for 10 points. So this could be a combination that improves the weapon back to more a better damage output, but it will not be as good as it was before with the damage 3. His aura has been nerfed. The fight after they charged, now you can select one unit within 3 inches at the start of the fight phase to fight later, but you can also restore and basically bring back his former aura if you take a relic. Of course, then you cannot take the Vomitrix, but if you want the aura effect that you had similar to what he has today or had today, it's called Revolting Stench Bats, and it's a standard relic, doesn't need a special Plague Company. This gives the Foul Blightspawn a 6-inch aura where a unit enemy units cannot fight first, and they don't count as having charged regardless of any rules those units might have. So I guess if you want to take the Foul Blightspawn and want the benefit that he was giving you in close combat, you should really consider this relic. And maybe, as I read the rules quickly, maybe this also will, for example, deny the enemies that charge to get benefits from charging, for example, the Space Marines equivalent to a Hateful Assault, giving them +1 attack, or White Scars that can make more damage if they charge and so on. But I think I will have to read a bit more carefully when the Codex comes. But I think this relic restores the Foul Blightspawn's aura if you want it. Then continuing to one of the maybe most improved units, and very good units now for the new Codex is the Plague Surgeon, and he has the ability that at the end of his movement phase you can heal a model of Bubonic Astartes infantry for d3 lost wounds within 3 inches. So for example, that could be really good if you have some Terminators that have been a bit wounded. You can bring them back, restore them to 3 wounds, or Plague Marines from 1 up to 2 wounds, or Bubonic Astartes infantry would also be characters, as I understand it, infantry characters and other characters that can be restored. So this is a good ability, and now he has a very interesting aura. that bubonic Astartes infantry within 3 inch get a 6 feel no pain. So basically we get our disgusting resilience in some form. An aura of plague surgeons can give this, and so a combination of the more wounds of our infantry, the feel no pain from the plague surgeon, and the new disgusting resilience. I will have, of course, to do the math, but it seems like we are getting more and more back to some very good durability levels. And probably it will be really good to combine the plague surgeon together with the Fugaris helm to increase the aura range of the feel no pain benefit. So I think with his changes, probably he will become one of the most useful elite characters of the new codex, able to heal and increase the durability of our infantry all across the board. Then continuing to the Taliman has been changed quite considerably. So his ability is that you can select a core unit in the command phase within 6 inch, and this unit will get +1 to hit until your next command phase. So this could be really good if you can use it for a big unit of, for example, Terminators or Marine or even Possessed, let's say, that can that can shoot and fight in one turn for maximum benefit. So for example, if you have your Marines, they could maybe shoot and get the +1 to hit, then they could charge, and then they have +1 when fighting in melee, and then when in the next phase, if they also are locked in combat, they also will benefit from the +1 to hit. So this will be very good that our units will then basically be hitting on 2 pluses. But we have lost the previous ability, the aura, to reroll all hit rolls for melee units. For example, the Poxwalkers could really benefit, or Chaos Spawn or other such units could benefit a lot from the Taliman, but now he cannot do that anymore. So you need a core unit here. So Plague Marines or Terminators are what spring to mind, or Deathshroud Terminators, for example, could also do, but their weapon skill is better, 2+. So and then his previous ability to get command points refunded has been changed also, but now to the better. So at the start of the command phase, if you have a Taliman, you can re-roll 2d6. If you roll more than a 7, you get 1 CP back, or you get 1 CP added. So of course this is a better than the previous ability for sure. You have a more than 50% chance every turn to gain 1 command point, so you will be getting 2 or 3 on average in the course of the game. So really interesting to do. Additionally, before the Relic Tollkeeper was one of the ones that you needed to select the Plague Company, but now this is the Tollkeeper relic has been moved to the standard relics, and this is very interesting that the core units within 6 inch of the Taliman with this relic, when they are hitting with 6s on ranged weapons, they score additional hits. So basically exploding 6s rule with ranged weapons. So this could be really good for, let's say, a group of 10 Plague Marines or several core units close to the Taliman. They could do a bit more damage and a bit more hits against enemies. So this could be a really interesting thing to include the Taliman, taking this relic and getting the better command points, and selecting 1 additional unit for +1 to hit. So this could be some interesting combos with the Taliman, but he can no longer support, let's say, Poxwalkers or other melee fighting units that didn't have very good weapon skill. And then finally, the final elite character, let's go to the Biologus Putrefier. First of all, some of his weapons have been changed. His injector pistol previously was doing d6 damage against the infantry, biker, and cavalry enemies. Now it still does 1 damage, but if you successfully wound, you do additional d3 mortal wounds on the target. So yeah, you are getting some mortal wounds where you previously would have more wounds per attack. And now his aura allows bubonic Astartes units that can throw blight grenades within 6 inches to improve the grenade profile with AP -1, and then they become a damage 2, but it doesn't improve the strength of the grenade from 3 to 4. So this is a bit a pity, but with the contagions with minus toughness, maybe we are still okay for this combination. But we no longer have a stratagem that allows a unit to throw all the models can throw grenades, but I think there was a stratagem that allowed 3 models in your army to throw grenades. So in combination maybe with a Biologos Purifier, you could still make a mini grenade bomb. And he has a foul infusion aura, which is very interesting, and he didn't have anything of that before. So at the start of the charge or the fight phase, you can select one core unit within 6 inches of the purifier, and these core units' melee attacks with plague weapons on unmodified 6 to wound will score additionally 1 mortal wound. So basically this is like our Blades of Putrefaction without the addition of the +1 to wound. So this can be really good, but just on a side note, the Blades of Putrefaction are out from the book. We don't have the psychic power anymore. So basically the Putrefier becomes like a mini Blade of Putrefaction spreader without the need to take psychic tests. But this could be really interesting to take, let's say, a big group of Plague Marines, a big group of Deathshroud Terminators, a big group of Blightlord Terminators with on 6s to wound, giving additional mortal wounds can be really devastating for the enemy unit. So could be some interesting builds around the Biologos Purifier. So moving away from the elite characters to the troops, some notes here for the Poxwalkers. They have lost the ability to perform actions even if they are infantry. So for example, they cannot raise banners anymore, which is quite a considerable drawback, but they are allowed to do a death card specific secondary objective that has a death card specific action. Basically they can infect an objective marker and take mortal wounds in doing so. So you would have some Poxwalkers in the backfield basically, and they would just damage themselves to give you 3 victory points, which is quite crazy. But yeah, it's a pity that they can't do any other actions that could be useful in the secondary objectives. A good thing is that they have gotten 6+ Feel No Pain. They don't have an armor save still. They don't get Disgusting Resilience as we saw, but they have gotten the 6+ Feel No Pain, giving them a little bit rudimentary possibility to save something. Typhus Aura doesn't buff their toughness anymore, only their strength. But they got the increase in toughness in the base stats, so toughness 4. They don't have Inexorable Advance. They're not bubonic starters, and so you can't really advance them faster. You can't take them on transports. You can't do so much to improve their movement, and the Noxious Blightbringer cannot make them move faster. So they cannot be in transport. So they are a bit, and they cannot deep strike anymore with the Harbingers. So they are a bit more stay in the back and maybe infect some secondary objectives or move up very slowly, spreading some contagion. The Chaos Cultists, I think a lot of nerfs, but okay, Poxwalkers have become much cheaper, so this is very good. The Chaos Cultists, they don't get objective secure, they don't have the contagions, and they cannot be in a transport. So basically, if you have them, they would be able to raise banners in the backfield, and basically that's about it. And then Plague Marines will be the main troop going forward. The Flail, interestingly, goes from D3 hits per attack to 2 hits per attack, but the Flail no longer spill over wounds to other models. But there is a stratagem quite costly for 2 CP that can do this for a whole core unit weapons. So you could take a big unit of Plague Marines, also with high damaging weapons like the Cleaver D6, and then all the wounds with his stratagem have to be allocated. So this you could really kill a lot of Horde infantry by all their melee weapons here. The Flail model and the Cleaver model have been updated, so They retain their plague knife, so they are, before they were, you would replace the plague knife and the bolter to get the flail or the cleaver, but now you are keeping the plague knife, and this makes importantly that they have 2 melee weapons, so they will have a base of 3 attacks. So a flail marine will do 6 hit rolls with a flail, so 3 base attacks times 2 hits per attack, so 6. And today you would expect on the charge you would expect 4, like 2d3, so you would expect 4 on average. But you can only take the flail, as I discussed yesterday, in 1 out of 5 models, and basically all the special weapons have 1 out of 5 models requirement. So you can't have, for example, 5 double knives or 2 flails in a 5 or 7 model group. But in a Plague Marine group of 10, you could still have 2 flails. The max size of the Plague Marines is down to 10. You can no longer bring 20. I guess that makes they maybe wanted to, with the new rules, you would be able to have 4 flails in a group of 20. So that could be quite interesting. But it's not possible. And of course, I have to do the math to find out the optimal weapon loadouts. I hope you have a bit of patience for me to analyze a bit more before I throw myself into the calculations. One thing that affect our infantry is that the Cloud of Flies stratagem that was helpful before, it has become a much more costly stratagem. Now it's 2 command points for infantry and 4 for Terminators. So moving on to Terminators and Possessed, the Death Card Terminators will be now able to move 5 inches and with no penalties for advancing, retaining their 4+ invul. And this also affects the HQ that have Terminator armor. They will still have 4+ invul and be able to move 5 inches, for example, Typhus. So this is really good for the mobility and still keeping the durability, to at least with the invul saves for our Terminators. The Blightlord Terminators, they lose their Aura of Rust. And as I talked yesterday, the war gear options will have limit. Let's say you can take combi plasmas or combi meltas on a lot of them. So they will basically nearly all the weapon options are 1 in 5 models. So I still have to do the math for the optimal weapon loadouts. The Death Shroud Terminators, they no longer can protect Mortarion. This was one of their biggest, let's say, one of the big reasons to take them with Mortarion was that they could take shots instead of him. They have a bodyguard ability, but this means only that characters with 9 wounds or lower cannot be targeted if they are within 3 inches of the Death Shroud from ranged attacks. Also they seem to have lost the ability that they had before to grant extra attack to Death Card characters. I think it was called something like Mortarion's Eye or something like that. With the Death Shroud Terminators, the new Man Reaper profiles, as I previewed in my earlier video, they will have improved damage and they will have more. Let's say you have a profile for a horde type enemies and you have profile for more tougher enemies. So this and with more attacks and everything like this, they will be really lethal in melee combat. Of course, all our Terminators, they have now Blightlords and Death Shroud, they have 3 wounds and a disgusting resilience. The Possessed stayed at 2 wounds, not 3, as maybe was a bit erroneously reported in Warhammer community. Now also they have lost the ability to be transported, for example, on a Rhino, and they take 2 spots on, for example, a Land Raider like Terminator. So they will be more difficult to transport upfield, but at least they have a 7-inch move. So let's continue to the final group for this review, the Daemon Engines. So basically we have a good improvement. Before we got the reveals of the Codex, we had already known that they will have a big overall improvement with the ballistic skills and weapon skills going to 3+. But as looking at all the keywords, they are not bubonic as starters, so they will not be able to get the inexorable advance to shoot the heavy weapons in point blank with no penalty. They can still shoot the heavy weapons, but with a penalty, let's say. Hitting on 4+, for example, which is still better than they had today, where you would need to have a 5+. The Poxmongers, which was a very popular plague company maximize the effect and the durability of Daemon Engines, and especially the Ironclad Furnace Relic. This has been nerfed considerably. So basically, the relic allows you to give one unit a 4++ invul save. So you no longer, for example, if you have a Demon Prince surrounded by Foetid Blow Drones or Plagueburst Crawlers or whatever, that all of those units will be benefiting from 4+ invul saves. Now you can select one unit in the command phase, I believe. And then previously we had the Poxwalkers had the stratagem that allowed Demon Engines to fall back and shoot at a penalty, but this is no longer available. However, maybe we got an even better stratagem here. We have a stratagem that allows a Demon Engine to shoot blast weapons in engagement range and gives +1 to hit in point blank. So basically we could have one unit, I'm thinking here the Plagueburst Crawler could shoot the mortar, or the Mephitic Blightholder could shoot the Bile Maw, which is a blast weapon in melee, and then the mortar would be still hitting on a 3+, or all the weapons of the Plagueburst Crawler will be hitting a 3+ in point blank. So this stratagem can be really quite good from the Poxmongers, but the Ironclad Furnace Relic has been nerfed considerably. So it's a question if you would like that or take some other relic. If we look specifically at the Demon Engines, the Foetid Blow Drone, as was previewed before the Codex, is now having a non-degrading profile, and it was interesting to see one of the stratagems called Dark Cravings for 1 command point allow Foetid Blow Drones to make heroic intervention of 6 inches. So this is really good, could be really good stuff for a Foetid Blow Drone with a Flesh Mower. The Flesh Mower does 12 attacks in melee, and the Foetid Blow Drone with the mower wants to get into melee and do a lot of damage. So with a 6-inch heroic intervention, it might be able to come into close combat more often, and it's interesting to keep this stratagem in mind. The Mephitic Blightholders lost their ability that gives cover to infantry wholly within, and are of course significantly more expensive now. From 100 points they went up to 140 points. They can still be taken in groups of 3, but they don't get any accuracy in the additional accuracy from 3+. They start with a 3+ weapon skill and ballistic skill. A unit of 3 could still be good if you consider the Ironclad Relic being able to select one unit that all the 3 basically the 3 models benefit from the 4+ invul save. But now a group of 3 is now 420 points from previously 300, so it's really need to be checked. And of course I need to do the calculations comparing the Demon Engines again to see which is most efficient per points. There is a stratagem called Belching Fumes, and this reduces the number of attacks targeting them. So for example, the Eradicators will lose, instead of shooting 2 times, they would only be able to shoot one time per model, and this stratagem costs 1 command point to protect the Mephitic Blightholders if there are 1 or 2 models in the unit, but if you have 3, then it costs 2 command points, 3 Mephitic Blightholders. So yeah, some interesting stratagem to consider here. The Plagueburst Crawler overall I think has been improved. One big improvement is the entropy cannon. We knew that it instead of d6 damage it will be doing 3 plus d3 damage, which is of course much better and much more reliable, but now it also gets a plague weapon re-rolling once to wound, but you cannot, for example, get an Arch Contaminator to help this further and re-roll all to wound. But okay, but this means also we no longer have the accelerated entropy stratagem, so there is no need in using extra command points to upgrade the entropy cannons. Now they start as plague weapons with 3d3. And one important thing, I couldn't see any minimum range for the mortar in the datasheet. So this is really good, allowing it to shoot closer, and also with the Poxwalker stratagem, allowing to shoot blast weapon is in engagement range would allow the mortar to be shot in point blank with the stratagem and Poxmonger. So this is quite interesting. Additionally, there is a very good, super good stratagem in the shooting phase. It's called Disgusting Force for 1 command point. So this stratagem makes that the mortar, instead of damage 2, it becomes damage 3. So really good clearing out eradicators or aggressors hiding in ruins that you cannot see, and maybe you can shoot them with a mortar. And then when you have finished shooting, you also can give mortal wounds to nearby units 3 inches from the units you were targeting on a 4+. So this can make a very good damage on the unit you're shooting with a straight damage 3. And also additionally, you can be spreading mortal wounds on, let's say, castles or some units hiding behind terrain. So really interesting for use of the Plague Burst Crawler's mortar. The Defiler has a lot of weapon options that need to be considered, but unfortunately it doesn't have a disgusting resilience. So, summary and some final thoughts about this review. Regarding the abilities and keywords for the units, as we saw yesterday, not many core units in the Codex. Our headquarter combinations are limited due to the Lord of the Death card keyword. Basically, only the Sorcerer and the Plaguecaster do not have the Lord of the Death card of our HQ units. Nearly all our units have contagions, except the Chaos Cultists, but everything else has contagions, thankfully. So we should be able to, for example, also the Rhinos, after they disembark, they can be used to spread their contagion. The Bubonic Astartes keyword is needed to benefit from certain abilities, for example, the Inexorable Advance, and not all our units have Bubonic Astartes. For example, our Daemon Engines are not Bubonic Astartes. And lots of auras and abilities target, let's say before they were more wide, but now you can select one unit to get the benefit, or you need a specific keyword, for example, only Bubonic Astartes or only core units. And previously we could buff our army, everything close to an Arch Contaminator, for example, would benefit. Now it's only core units, for example. And a lot of the auras and abilities, just to note also this, they require that you have the unit buffing and the unit being buffed belong to the same plague company. So if you take multiple detachments with different plague companies, you cannot typically benefit, for example, from a Noxious Blightbringer from a Poxmonger's plague company, cannot buff Plague Marines from a Mortarion's Son's plague company. Just to keep in mind, there are a lot of limitations of where the auras and abilities can work. The Foetid Virion, or all our elite characters, have been updated, and they have new auras and abilities, changing them quite a lot from what we know today. I think all of them are quite interesting, and they can all be useful and make for some interesting strategies. The Plague Surgeon seems like a very good choice without doing the math yet, but it seems very interesting that he can do healing and make feel no pain. 6+ to Bubonic Astartes infantry. The Putrefier can still buff grenades, and he has also a very good buff in melee combat. The Taliman can get CPs to the group, and he can be boosting the range damage with a relic, and he can also get 1 unit +1 to hit. Could be interesting buffing some big units. The Blightbringer gives +1 to move and some negative things for the opponent combat attrition test, but basically the +1 to move for the Bubonic infantry units. And then the Blightspawn with a relic can still have good aura for the melee combat. His weapon is a bit nerfed, but it can be improved with pathogens and relic. So maybe we lost a little bit of his weapon damage, but still the relic can still help him getting the good aura for melee that we know from the current codex. In the troops, we have seen limitations for Poxwalkers and Cultists. Poxwalkers and Cultists, they lack a lot of the abilities and the synergies like a lot of other units have, and it's more a push towards Plague Marine based troop choices going forward. The Terminators will become very significant, I think, with a 5-inch move and retaining the 4+ invul save, good melee weapons and special weapons. The Death Shroud can no longer protect Mortarion, but Mortarion has been benefiting greatly from the new Disgusting Resilience, keeping the old Disgusting Resilience. So I think he will be at least more resilient than he was before, but now the Death can no longer put an additional protection and take the hits for him. In the Daemon Engines, we have seen some better accuracy, of course. We have some interesting stratagems, for example, especially for the Plaguebear Scroller. I think that one sounds very good in my opinion, but we will have a bit lower durability with the new Disgusting Resilience compared to what we have before when being attacked by heavy weaponry. The Plaguebear Scroller, the Mortar, has no minimum range. The entropy cannons a plague. I think this is very interesting. The Foetid Blow Drone with the mower becomes more interesting, and with the heroic intervention type of stratagem, it can be useful in combat or get locked more in combat. And why doesn't the Defiler get Disgusting Resilience? So basically, this concludes the video. What do you think about the unit reviews? What do you think about the limitations and the abilities and keywords that we have? What are your first thoughts about these elite characters and some synergies you would be looking forward to try? And then Terminators and Daemon Engines, what are your thoughts? So if you like this video, please press like, subscribe to the channel, where I will be posting more videos and more analysis of the codex, starting also to look at the optimal weapon compositions for the different units. If you want to additionally support my work, please feel free to visit my Patreon page, General Yanis, and join the discussion and work groups there. So with these words, General Yanis is signing out. Stay safe there, and bye-bye.